It might be a bit of an overstatement to call them hated, but especially with English dubbed characters in JRPGs, mascots tend to take a brunt of the dislike. And that's mostly due to both their mannerisms and their voices. To me, I've never truly been bothered by them. Most of the time, I view their mannerisms and voices as byproducts of localizing a game. It comes with trying to keep the character intact as you change from one language to another. But people definitely do dislike some mascot characters just because of their voice work, without even taking their character into consideration. And with that, I think there's room for discussion on how we can actually preserve these characters' mannerisms and personalities, but maybe not the voices.
I've had enough of your high and mighty rationalization.
This is just a discussion. It's not about replacing voice actors or even removing voice actors. It's just about the direction being given to the people playing these characters. It's not an attack on the teams working behind the scenes on the characters, games, localization, or even voice work. My own opinion of these characters is that they're mostly fine as is. Much like how I don't get a lot of joy out of anime humor that you see in a lot of JRPGs, these parts of the game are part of the culture of these games. You can't really run from it. It just exists, and there are some parts of every game you just have to live with. But otherwise, like I said before, these characters are usually fine. But truly, if a character annoys me, typically it's because of their personality rather than the voice. Unless the voice work is actually bad, I can't be bothered to dislike a character because of it. So in short, there is no necessity to change these characters' voices. But that doesn't mean I don't have a little bit of a point to make. Xenoblade is a franchise filled with rich storytelling and fantastic characters. And they also have comic relief, a role that mascot characters are typically designated for. Nopons are a race in the game that are 100% mascot material. They're silly, pretentious little puffballs with voices and mannerisms that help them fit the bill of a mascot character. Ricky and Tora from Xenoblade 1 and 2 fit this bill pretty well. That's not to say they don't have character moments, but it is true that they are usually the butt of the jokes. This is also true for Tatsu in Xenoblade X, but I'd never finished that game, so I don't want to talk too much on something I haven't fully experienced. Now, Xenoblade 3 introduces Riku and Manana, two Nopon companions who, in some way, are still relegated to comic relief.
Unkind enough to show face, but will hide again if this drag on.
True. Time is wasting itself.
But the core difference here is that while in the Japanese voiceover, Riku has a much more Nopon-esque voice,
全然変わってない。
当たり前も形なんて飾りも
the English localization chose to use a deeper voice.
Ouroboros also not change. Before pulled free, Mobius' power not affect it either.
The script itself doesn't receive any major changes. Riku is the same character between the two languages, but his voice in English is not kept consistent with the Japanese version. And I found this to be pretty interesting, because most games don't really do this. Even Ricky and Tora keep up the cute mascot-like voice the original attempts to create. But Riku stands apart, and I think that is partially due to his role in the story. Instead of just being a silly mascot, he's actually got kind of a story to him. I'm not going to spoil any of that here, but the core point I want to get across is that Riku's localized voice does not diminish his character in serious or silly moments. In fact, I do think that it actually kind of elevates his character in the English versions.
What does it mean to glomp? No!
Now, the whole point of this is to discuss whether this is okay for JRPG localization. And I don't think Riku is the only example, just the most jarring example of this. Morgana is another character who kind of just has a regular voice. This also doesn't wind up hindering his character. At the same time, there are characters who have higher pitched voices that kind of do actually work out. They may not be liked for their personality, but the voice isn't that bad. You can make whichever argument you want, and you'll find characters that work and characters that don't work on either side. In short, what I'm trying to say is that maybe mascot characters don't need to have squeaky voices. It's not that it's unnatural, there are tons of people out there with high-pitched voices. But my full opinion on the matter is that I would actually like it if we started to see more mascots with a variety of voices, instead of going for the predictable cutesy voice. The surprise doesn't really make it better, but it makes the character feel less like a very obvious thing that's going to be in the game, and more like an actual character. It's hard to explain this without probably sounding mildly offensive. But those are just my thoughts on mascot characters and their voices. I definitely haven't played as many JRPGs with these characters as other people seem to have. Really off the top of my head, the most obvious ones are like Paimon and Vern from Grand Blue Fantasy, but I don't really know that many, honestly. And technically speaking, Paimon's not even from a JRPG. So if you have your own thoughts about these kinds of characters and their voices, why don't you leave a comment down below? You can leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and if you think that mascot characters should have more voice variety. And also, you can subscribe to the channel if you want more JRPG related content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.